It's the Brad and John Show.
The Brad and John Show for Friday, April 4th. This is B Block, the Bravo Block, and we start this about 7:20. I do that because of the fact that a lot of people listen to the show live, either on the air on 104.5 or streaming, but a lot of people listen to it in the future. The future is not right now, but it's in the future when we get these shows uploaded on bjshow.co, which is our true podcast site, our bjshow.video, which is the podcast via YouTube video. Okay, John, post office. Here's the thing that I'm scratching my head. Let's be honest, the post office does not handle the volume of mail it once did, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely true, for sure.
Because how many times, if you do any kind of business with credit cards or anything, there's a box that you check or you go online and you say, I would like to have all electronic communication, or don't send me, would you like to have paperless billing, right? Isn't that, don't you say it all the time?
Yeah, and in fact, most of the time, and the reason I do that is they'll start sticking you with a surcharge if you still want a paper bill.
Right. So, and obviously it costs them money to print statements and put them in envelopes and put postage on them and blah, 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 blah. Okay, if the amount of work has decreased and we have not significantly cut the labor force, which with the post office we have not, why has the service gone to the poopster? You know what I mean? Why is that?
Yeah. And well, first of all, I think, as I always say, Brad, it's never just one thing. And so it could be you're attracting lower quality employment candidates. And as the Postal Service gets a worse reputation, fewer people want to work there. And it's probably just a whole host of things.
Okay.
And, let's go back to the fact that it's probably just bad management.
Well, let me give you my personal anecdotes. Okay. For a long time, I had a post office box at the Clayton Post Office. Okay. I gave up on the Clayton Post Office because of the fact that it got to the point where it got ridiculous. I could not get, for a while I had package delivered there, and I would get notification, like if I was tracking and say, hey, it's delivered at the post office. And I go there, no, it's not. We can't find it. And I go there 2 days later, oh, we still can't find it. I go there a week later, oh, we found it. Okay, and there's two other little anecdotal things. Those of you who've gone to the Clayton Post Office know you go into the post office, there's these doors, automatic doors, that they don't swing open. They slide open. One goes left, one goes right, and you go through the middle. You know what I'm talking about, John?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
Okay. In the winter, those doors would break all the time, and they would just leave them open. So the cold winter air is going into the post office lobby, and the heaters are running full time. Now, if our front door broke at our house, John, let's say the front door at your house broke, and you just say, I'm not going to put it back on its hinges. I'm just going to leave it open.
The folks at Spire would love me because my bill would be $1,000 that month.
That's my point.
But it doesn't matter. It's not real money, Brad. It's the federal government's money.
Well, you look at that and you go like, okay. But see, you've just made the point. It ain't their money. If at their house, if the manager at that post office, they'd get it fixed. Second thing is, I've asked, I've never gotten an answer. The Clayton Post Office had a little drive-through lane, and they had not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 drop boxes with the long snoot that comes out so you can drop the mail in from your car.
Yeah.
They're gone. They don't have them anymore. So if you want to go to the Clayton Post Office now, and there's a lot of people in Clayton, a lot of attorneys and stuff like that still, because of the fact that you have to notify people by first-class mail, yada, 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 there's still a lot of mail activity in Clayton, okay? Why would you take away the convenience? And nobody will give me the answer to this day. I drove by there the other day and said, well, maybe they put those things back in. No, they're still gone. Now, I know people were saying, well, the reason for that, and if you talk, and I think you probably know exactly which post office I'm talking about, John.
I know exactly where it is in Clayton, yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the one in Chesterfield. They had a lot of problems out there.
Oh, the one at Clayton and Clarkson, or the one at Clarkson and
Highway 40.
Like the Clarkson and 40.
Right. The one right there where they had an incident, or several incidents, where people were putting their arms or putting coat hangers down the snoots of the post office and pulling out stacks of mail and rummaging through the mail and finding checks that were sent to people, yada, 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 yada. Okay, so in the private sector, if you had someone who was stealing from you, what would you do, John? Would you essentially say, well, we're not going to offer that service anymore? Or we'd say, okay, we have to figure out how to make that more secure. Which one?
Yeah, you'd find a way to make it more secure and restore the faith of your customers.
Right, but not the post office.
And higher security.
Right, but not the post office. They just because I've been told unofficially the reason they took the drop boxes out in Clayton was because of the fact that you had to they had too much mail stolen. Now, here's the other problem with Clayton, okay? And this is Brad ranting on this, okay? The Clayton post office is on Maryland. Maryland used to be 4 lanes wide plus a parking lane on each side of Maryland, okay? You could park at meters, okay? This goofy, crazy, donkey stuff where they're putting the bike lanes in, if you've been on Maryland lately, they've done the thing where it's now 2 lanes. It's not 4 lanes anymore. It's 2 lanes. And if you park, you don't park against the curb. You park like in the middle of the street because between the lane where you park and the curb, that's the bike lane.
Oh, it's the county seat, Brad. And we need to do whatever we can in the county seat to encourage people. Don't rely on fossil fuels. Ride your bike around, get in everyone's way, and let's destroy some valuable traffic lanes on high traffic roads to put bike lanes in.
John, you remember out in your neck of the woods when the big controversy, they were going to do that in Baxter? Remember they resurfaced Baxter between...
Yeah, bikers are just... I think the only form of life below pedestrian.
Well, but they resurfaced Baxter between Clarkson...
Between Clarkson and Clayton.
Well, all the way down, they resurfaced this all the way down to like Edison, down in the valley there. But that's where it turned 2 lanes anyway. But the 4-lane section, they were going to do the same thing to it. They were going to make it into a 2-lane stretch. They're going to make it to the point where they're going to have a big monstrous bike lane. And I'm going like, okay, I've been on Baxter many, many, many times. I've been in the Clayton post office many, many times. I've been in downtown Clayton. I rarely see anybody on a bike. It's not like you see these pictures of like cities like in Europe where you see Copenhagen where everybody's riding their bikes, okay?
Or even New York City or something like that.
Even New York City, right. Everybody's riding their bikes. You live out in that area. Do you see that many people on bikes?
No, but I will see on Sundays you'll see folks on, for example, Conway Road or Clarkson. You'll see them in annoying packs clogging up traffic, and they never choose to ride on sidewalks, obviously. They would rather clog up traffic on simple 2-lane roads than go somewhere where they have plenty of room,
I don't get it.
Can I tell my post office story?
Yeah, go.
So I had a piece of mail that needed to go to Washington, D.C., and it was not my taxes. And you know how I am, Brad. One of the personality differences between you and I is that I never talk about things before they happen. And you like to, because you are a promoter at your core, you like to talk about things and build anticipation and excitement for things. I had an entity in Washington, D.C. I'll just tell this part straight up, ask for a copy of my book because there's something going on with one of my books. And anyway, so I wanted to mail this to Washington, D.C., and I went to one of my favorite post offices on March 18th. And I won't say which one because I love this post office. It is not the one closest to me, Brad. I'll just say that it is not the one in Chesterfield, but it is one I have to drive a little bit to. But I go there because I have fantastic service and I love the people there. So I dropped it off. I went inside, paid for the mail, paid for the receipt, everything like that. And I mailed it on March 18th. And for 2 straight weeks, when I checked the tracking, it said, USPS in possession of item. Well, that's not helpful, right? And then you click on more details and it had nothing else. So a week ago, I went to this particular favorite U.S. Postal Service place and I said, what in the Ford frick is going on with this? And I gave them my tracking number. And the woman, one of my favorite women who works there, said, yeah, it's down in St. Louis City and they haven't done their job. And I said, are you serious? And she goes, yeah, they haven't exactly done their job. And she goes, I'd wait a little bit while longer and then go to the website and you can put in an official inquiry. And I said, cool, thanks, like whatever. So I've been sitting on it and it's kind of been grinding my gears. And yesterday, for the first time, Brad, it was updated and it shows that it was finally processed at its destination. It's in Washington, D.C. I anticipate that it'll get to the entity that's expecting it today or maybe on Monday. And Brad, this is an example of something. This is not a life-threatening thing if it didn't get there in a week or two. But imagine if I was sending a check to somebody. And in fact, if you go to the piece that's in the Post-Dispatch by Kim Bell, and she talks about what Holly is saying, she starts off by showing somebody that he was getting a final reimbursement check for hail damage, and he waited however many weeks for it. So then he just called the insurance company and canceled it, and then it showed up 2 days later. Why can't the Postal Service do anything right?
Well, I think the frustration, you and I have the same frustration. Remember the one morning earlier this year, I bought a couple things on eBay, not expensive things. One is like $50-$60, some used stuff that I was using here at the radio station. One of them was a label printer that I need to that I've got an older one. It's showing its age, and I needed a newer one, but I bought another used one. Long story made short, the guy shipped it to me, I think I said, the day after Christmas, and I got it like February 3rd. And it's the same thing. And remember, I had the one package where it bounced around in St. Louis for like a week. It went to sorting facility in 63042, and then it went to the sorting facility at 63155. And I'm going and it went back and forth. I'm going, what is going on with this?
And Congressman Jason Smith from down in the southeast part of the state points out frequently that if you mail a letter from the boot heel, it goes to St. Louis to be sorted and then comes back to the boot heel.
Well, I know. It's crazy. We've talked about that.
How does that possibly make sense?
It makes no sense.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for an entity that constantly under the Biden administration talks about, fuel efficiency and being carbon neutral or carbon negative, what in the world are they thinking?
John, I've told the story before that most of the non-631 post offices, in like the outer circles, is 630, because I used to live in Hazelwood, 63042, and I did business in Washington, 63090. Okay. In those post offices, back in the day, when you went in, there were two slots if you dumped your mail inside. One said local, one said out of town. So, and the idea was if you were in Washmo, if you had something that's delivered to 630, now if you're sending like something across town in Washington, you drop it in the local one, which would be sorted there locally within Washington and then delivered the next day. It happened like clockwork. But
which is a huge juxtaposition from, you always said in college, you would prefer to drop your load in an out-of-town slot rather than a local slot.
Here goes John again.
At the post office.
But now everything, and you talked about the boot heel, it's Cape Girardeau, it's Carbondale, it's Springfield, Illinois, it's all the collar counties. Anything you mail in Warren County, Franklin County, St. Charles County, St. Charles County. Yeah, I think St. Charles County as well.
Yeah,
too.
Probably St. Charles County. Yeah.
Jefferson County goes from that location to downtown and then back out again. You hit the nail on the head. The Biden administration, we've got to go green. We've got global warming. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is the stupidest thing in the world. You're talking about how much diesel fuel is being built or being spent, by trucks picking the mail up in Cape Girardeau, driving it into St. Louis, then turning around and driving it back down to the boot heel. Think about that for a minute. I mean,
it just goes back to the basic functions of people want their mail delivered on time. And let's extrapolate this, or maybe bring it down, zoom it into St. Louis City. If you're a progressive and you voted for Tishaura Jones in 2021 because you like all her progressive stuff, at a certain point you say, yeah, but government should probably plow the streets and keep crime down. Like, why isn't that happening? Just do the basic stuff right.
I agree with you. Okay, stock market. John, should people be up on top of the SBC or the SBC building downtown?
Boy, you're showing your age. No, they should go to the Boatman's Bank building, Brad, and then get something from Central Hardware.
Right. Okay.
Here's the answer. Excuse me. First of all, not financial advice. And if you want financial advice, go to Mike McGee. He's a friendly and fun financial advisor at Edward Jones. The stock market is in short-term trouble. And when people are clutching their pearls, the first thing to acknowledge, and by the way, all my knowledge of this comes from Hedgeye Risk Management, which I use to keep on track of my retirement and things of that nature. You should have been, you being anyone listening or anyone who pays attention to their retirement or whatever, you should have been positioned for this. So number one, and if you're not, then that's your fault. But where to go from here? we're going to have short-term pain. The consumer is in bad shape. Anything consumer discretionary, so that's ETF, XLY. We don't need to get into these particulars, but the consumer will be in bad shape for months. The economy, and which is not to be confused with the stock market, but the stock market will be in trouble for a few months. And then, right now is a good time to wait and watch. I would say for folks who are self-directed, or as CNBC would call them, retail investors, if you manage your own money and you weren't positioned for this, number one, shame on you. Number two, find a process that preserves and protects your capital. I use Hedgeye Risk Management. You might want to go to Edward Jones and get some advice there. Things are going to be painful, Brad. And, personally, I wasn't aggressively short the Bag 7. We call them Bag 7 because if you're a bag holder, you're holding stocks like Microsoft and Amazon and Tesla. There's going to be a lot of short-term pain, and things are going to be worse in the short term.
But, John, the crazy thing about this is, and I will tell you the story that I've never told this before, that back in 1987, I had a deal. I was working with a company where I was actually developing a product. This may sound strange to you. I actually invented something. This is going way back. And I invented something in 1987, and I was involved with a company that was going to go public, okay? And the date was whatever the Black Monday was in 1987.
Yeah, October 1987.
Okay, let's say that it was the 10th. Our IPO was supposed to go public like on the 14th. Okay, so in other words,
oh, that's horrible timing.
Right, it was very bad timing. Okay, but do you by any chance remember what the Dow Jones Industrial Average was back in 1987?
So it would have been in the hundreds.
It was in the hundreds. And in one day it dropped like 50 points or something like that. Okay. Yeah. Where did the market close at, John, yesterday? 40,000 something or other? Wasn't it?
Yeah, and let's be fair that was almost 40 years ago.
But still, the point being that in the last 10 years ago, where was the stock market? Where was it?
Much lower than it was now. So the point you're making, Brad, is that the long-term trajectory of virtually every stock market, with the possible exception of Japan, which had suffered which is a unique animal. Your point is the U.S. stock market, which only morons and mouth breathers and knuckle draggers and troglodytes and women who miss spots on their knees when they shave would say, "Did you see the Dow Jones?" I'm not talking about you, Brad. I'm talking about idiots. Dow Jones is not the stock market, but we're not going to split hairs here. The long-term trend of the market is up because you're betting on global and domestic growth. So you're right, Brad. The long-term trajectory of the market is always up.
Right. And when people, what gets me about this is I go back to my Susie Orman story, and I go back to some real estate investors that I know that they told me that when the 2008-2009 crash hit, they spent all their time buying real estate that everybody else was.
Yeah, they have to. You got to. You can't let an opportunity like that go.
Because all the fraidy cats were, oh my God. And I told you the stupid Susie Orman story about it when she's on Oprah saying, well, if your house was worth $200,000 and you put 20% down on your house and your house is now worth $150,000, you're $10,000 underwater. You just need to go to the bank and drop your keys on the desk of the banker and say, I don't want my house anymore, and walk away from it and be on foreclosure. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Susie, let's go back.
A little self-dealing there, yeah.
Let's go back and do a little recall on that. Those people that dropped their keys on the desk of the banker because they were $10,000 underwater. What's that house worth today? You know what I mean?
And that's a very myopic, short-term view she had. And I know we're at the end of the segment, Brad, but it just as I feel like when people that are Republicans or Democrats or libertarians or conservatives or whatever start talking about, look at the price of Tesla. Like, you want things to be just one thing because you want it to fit a political ideology. Ask those same people what the long-term structure of Tesla has been over the last 5 years. How often does Tesla meet its production numbers? My point is, Brad, we have a whole lot of people talking about financial markets that have no idea what they're talking about. But they start from a political point of, I love Elon Musk or I hate Elon Musk, and therefore I am an expert on Tesla stock today.
What's the old classic story? There's some classic story that some big time investor.
It's Joe Kennedy's story, yeah.
That when he got into a taxi or something like that?
No, he talked to his shoeshine boy.
That's right.
And his shoeshine boy was giving him stock tips.
Right. And at that point he said, I'm out of the market, right? Because
yeah, you've reached your top. And think of how many Tesla fanboys bought Tesla stock because they like Elon Musk. Like how stupid, and I hate to use that word, Brad, but let's use that word. How stupid do you have to be to think that you're supporting Tesla by buying its stock? Like, it doesn't even make sense.
It's almost as stupid as the people who are keying the Teslas thinking they're hurting Tesla. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, that didn't hurt Elon Musk or the Tesla. It hurt the poor guy or gal who owned that car who now has to get it fixed. But that's a whole other story.